guys, I'm Keary Taylor and welcome back to this episode of Pen and Peddle. Today we're going to talk about something that I get asked about a lot, how to know when your book is done and when to call it done. To start us out, let me tell you a little bit about my process. I've been writing now for about 9 years or so, and at this point I have 25 titles out. So I've really honed my process into something productive and honestly really predictable. So I know what to expect from the time that I start with the very first blanking line on the page to calling it done and sending it off into the book world. So obviously I start with my first draft. I write the entire thing from beginning to end. I don't go back, I don't edit what I wrote the day before. I might read over it once before I start writing again the next day, but I go the entire thing from start to finish, beginning to end. My next step is what I call the quick read through. I usually take about 3 to 5 days to do this. So I start at the beginning and I just quickly read through the entire thing, and I take a ton of notes while I'm doing it. So I'm looking at the overall picture, I'm looking at character development, I'm looking at the flow of the story. I mean, sometimes when I'm first drafting, I just stop in the middle of a sentence and type myself a little note that this and this needs to get changed and go back. So during this 3 to 5 days, I'm just quickly reading through it all and taking a ton of notes. I'm not really changing anything actually in the story yet, just leaving myself a bunch of overall picture notes that I need to go back and take care of later. Next is what I call the heavy edit. Usually I take about 2 weeks to do this heavy edit. So say I have a 200-page manuscript and I have 2 weeks to do it with 5 work days in there. So take the number of pages divided about by the work days that I have. So 200 pages in 10 work days, and I'm implementing about 20 pages worth of notes every day. So in here I have to go back and I have to fix every one of those notes that I made for myself in the previous stage. So this is definitely my most dreaded round of editing and writing because it is a ton of work, but this is really where I start to see the magic happen. This is where you really start to see some development in your story and where you start to see all of the little things start pulling together, and it really starts to feel like a awesome, functional, flowing story. From here, I send the manuscript to a beta reader. This is somebody that I trust, and this is somebody who does a lot of reading, and they read the kind of stuff that I write. So typically in my genre, this beta reader, they typically read through the entire manuscript, and they do kind of what I did in that first stage. They're taking a ton of notes for me. They're making notes on, your plot development, your overall plot, where there's holes. They're taking notes on your characters, whether your characters are acting consistent, or they might say, hey, this sentence doesn't really sound like the way your character sounds the rest of the story, or things like that. So this is somebody who needs to read a lot and who understands how writing works, and somebody who gets your writing style. At this point, sometimes I'll do another round of edits where I'll read through it again, make notes, make changes, because at this point you've kind of gone through your book in a really choppy way. You've implemented a lot of notes, you've done quite a few different changes here and there, so it's probably a good idea to read through it at least one more time here just to make sure everything is flowing smoothly and this is developing into the story you want to tell. Finally, I send it to a proofreader. This is somebody who's great with grammar and punctuation and all that stuff that I'm really not very good at. This is somebody that obviously I trust again, somebody who kind of gets my writing style, because every writer has their own kind of style and way of wording things when they're writing, where I might start a lot of my sentences with and or but, and in high school I was told that was a big no-no. So you need somebody who kind of gets your style of writing and isn't just going to mark up every little thing that is partially just your writing style. Once I've plugged in the proofreader's edits and everything, I know that I'm finished. But for most people, it really probably isn't that cut and dry. You've probably gone through your manuscript a million times over and over and over, and you're probably just really doubting yourself if your book is actually finished or not, and you can't tell the difference at this point. So I have 2 big questions for you to help you decide if your book's done or not. Number 1, has somebody beta read it for you? You need some outside eyes to look over this. Like I said, you've read over this thing a million times over and over and over, but you need to get some feedback from somebody who doesn't have this story playing out in your head. To you, it probably seems totally smooth and like you've told the story exactly, and everybody should understand it just as well as you have. But to somebody outside of your own brain, it might look like a picture with a whole bunch of little holes all over inside of it. Like I said before, this needs to be somebody you trust, and it needs to be someone you trust that will be honest with you, because somebody just telling you, oh, that's great, I loved it, really is not that helpful. Honest guys, it really isn't. You need to get the good and you need to get the bad, and somebody who can tell you, honestly and without hurting your feelings what those things are. It needs to be somebody who reads a lot, and it needs to be someone who reads the genre that you're writing in. If you don't have any friends or family who are willing or qualified to be your beta reader, maybe try and find some other newbie writers and offer to do a beta read trade. Question number 2, has your book been proofread yet? You might have been a whiz in high school honors English class, but come on guys, when you're writing 60,000+ words, you're gonna miss something, and you might look back at it and say, oh my gosh, I totally knew that, and you totally did know it. But there was a million words in there, and you're just not gonna catch everything. So make sure you find somebody who's good at English and punctuation and all that, and have somebody look at it and review it. If your answer to either of those 2 questions is no, you haven't done those things yet, then honestly your book isn't ready yet. Now, if you can answer yes to both of those questions, but you're still not sure if it's done, let me tell you this. When you can't stand the thought of reading through your book one more time, you're either doing something wrong or you're done with it. When you start to hate your book, you're either doing something wrong or you're done with it. I get to both of these points with my books all the time. But how can you tell the difference between knowing if you're doing something wrong and if it's done? Go through this simple checklist, guys. You've gotten positive feedback and you've been told that your book is good. You're proud of the work and you're anxious for others to read it. Here's the honest truth. Calling it done is an active decision. It's an agreement with yourself that this book is as good as you are willing or able to make it. Every single book in the history of books could be written over and over and over again. But don't go into that insanity and madness, guys. Don't lose that beautiful simplicity of your writing. Don't get to the point where you just hate it and you're just making matters worse instead of making things better. Please, please take this to heart. If nothing else you get out of this video, take this advice. It's better to be 99% right and done than it is to be 100% perfect and never ever finished. So I hope this is helpful and gives you a little bit of direction on how to know when your book is finished. Stick around for the next episode of Pen Peddle. We'll have a different topic next time. If you like these videos, please subscribe or share. And if you have any particular questions about self-publishing or writing, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll try to get to them. Thanks for watching.